following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank Zabierek, and I'm really excited about this next subject matter we're going to be discussing here today that's rather near and dear to my heart. I guess several years ago I experienced, a few years after I moved to New Hampshire, about 7 or 8 years ago, I guess, I took my car to get an annual inspection sticker. I went to one of these chain vehicle maintenance places. I don't know if it's a national chain. It's definitely a regional chain in Hudson, New Hampshire. And lo and behold, I kind of feel I got ripped off on the experience. And unfortunately, I did, not to make a big stink out of it, I tried to get a second opinion. I went to another facility, and, you know, the guy took my money and everything like that. And then the first thing he did was go on his computer and see that I was a failure. He says, you had a failure through so-and-so. You're rejected. And meanwhile, I was out that amount of money for the inspection sticker. So there was no recourse or thing that I could appeal that thing. I failed because one of my tires had microscopic cracks on the side of it. So the guy told me I needed 4 new tires for about $600, and it was my lucky day because he had it right there. I says, I think I can get tires cheaper than that. And but lo and behold, what I wound up doing is, you know, taking this guy on the internet, complaining about him on the internet, as well as my YouTube page. And I've got all kinds of responses, and appropriately so, because that's a lot of money for either tires, brakes, exhaust systems. But without any further ado, my guest here is State Representative James Spillane out of Deerfield. And a couple years ago, he sponsored a bill in the New Hampshire legislature to hopefully eliminate the annual vehicle inspection sticker in our state. So without any further ado, James, first of all, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
It's great. So why don't you tell my TV audience a little bit about James Spillane and why you decided to become a state representative?
Oh, well, that's an interesting one. You know, I've been on the budget committee in Deerfield for a long time, over 15 years. Local politics I'd run, but state, I'd always put it off. People kept telling me that you can't be a state representative unless you're retired because you can't put the time in.
Okay.
But with all the stuff that I was seeing coming out of the state legislature and the laws that we needed to fix and the improvements that we needed to make, and as the job situation got worse and the taxes got higher, and I felt like our New Hampshire advantage was slipping away, we were basically becoming a Massachusetts North. And that bothered me because I'm a New Hampshire resident, been one for life. My family moved up here when I was 10 and lived in New Hampshire since. And always started out in Raymond, moved over to Deerfield, you know, always in the same general area. But I decided if I'm going to make it work, I'm going to make it work, full-time job and family or not. And I feel that one of the big things that we're lacking in the State House is younger people, working people, to give that opinion that isn't made up of an average age in the House of 70-something, you know. And last year, 2 years ago, when I got elected, there was actually quite a lot of younger people who got elected. I'm
Oh.
sorry to say a few of them have decided that they really can't make the finances work and things. But I'm up there every time I'm in the State House using my personal vacation days from work to be at the State House because it needs to get done. And if I'm not going to be up there and do it, I can't just see this New Hampshire advantage slip away. You know, I've got to get up there and make a difference.
No, I really don't want to get into your personal life, too much and tick you off too much. But your wife and your kids are fine with you blowing your vacation time to go up to Concord and attend these and participate in these legislative sessions.
Yeah, well, like anybody, money's tight for us too. So
Okay.
in order to take a big vacation, we'd have to have that money available. And it's not a situation in the economy the way that it's been in the last 2 years, even before 2 years ago, that I don't think there's a lot of families out there that have a lot of disposable income to take long family vacations. I get 3 weeks of vacation a year, and I am able to make it work where I'm using vacation days to be up there in committee or on the State House floor, and that's my vacation time, and I save myself some days towards the end of the year for hunting, and we do things on weekends.
Oh, there you go.
So.
There you go. And also, now you're from Deerfield, and you also represent the communities of Candia and Nottingham.
Correct.
In the 2nd Rockingham district.
Yep.
Is Deerfield the home of the annual Deerfield Fair?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Hence the name, Deerfield Fair. We have the Deerfield Fairgrounds, very big portion of property that for over 100 years has been home of the Deerfield Fair. And 2 years ago when I was running, I was there at the Deerfield Fair all 4 days, as much as I could be there, manning the booth, meeting people. It draws in people from well out of my district. But, as the guy that was going to be there representing that district, I had to make sure I was there and made a presence. And last year, after I got elected, I was there again, but they actually had me in for the opening ceremonies as well. So I got to take part in the opening ceremonies along with the governor, and it's a great fair. It's a family fair.
Yeah.
And it's one of the
my,
oldest.
My dad was a staunch farmer, and he would tell you, well, he didn't really get into the big vacations like taking us to Canopy Lake or Salisbury Beach or Hampton Beach or anything like that. But he always took us to the annual Deerfield Fair in New Hampshire and the annual Topsfield Fair. I think Topsfield's in Massachusetts.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
could
think
be
that,
wrong.
Topsfield, Mass.
It's
yeah.
always like the 4-H club giving blue ribbons to pigs, lambs,
Yeah.
cows, and
The biggest draw there, I think, definitely by far at the Deerfield Fair is, aside from the food booths, everybody goes for the food, but the animals. And the Deerfield Fair
Yeah.
has a great assortment of all the different animals. They have the horse jumping and horse shows, and then they've got the oxen pulls and the other livestock events that go on, the pig scrambles and all that. And it's just, people love to get out there and see the animals, look at all the different animals, go through the petting area for the kids
Yeah.
in the smaller barn. And, it's a great time.
okay.
Now, I did want to talk to you. You mentioned your experience with a garage. You don't need 4 tires.
I agree.
It's always good to get 2 at a time,
Yeah.
match them up. Very rarely do you need all 4 at the same time. You can rotate them around and buy 2. But it sounds to me like the guy really wanted to sell those 4 tires he had in stock. And I'll
Exactly.
tell you that they can be very picky, and they're allowed to be. They don't have to pass you. They have to meet what I found out in the course of this bill. There are minimum requirements to pass. Minimums. So the state says all these things must be minimum. But there's nothing that says a garage can't make those harder to pass. They can raise the bar on you, and so you have to know a good garage to go to.
Yes.
I do a lot of the work on my truck myself. Pretty much do it myself. And the times that I've gone in to get my inspection done, if they've said there's a problem with something, I've said, drop it. I'll take it home and fix it. I'll bring it back, and you can pass it. So they know they're not going to get any money out of me
Yeah.
in 99% of the cases. But an example of one of the ridiculous ones that I just had happen last year, I put myself from my Toyota into a new Dodge Dakota. Turned out I needed a new exhaust. So I replaced the exhaust from the catalytic converter back, and originally it had 4 exhaust hangers attached to the frame, but some of them had rotted out to the point where there was no hanger left on the frame. So I put 3 hangers in, which was perfectly sturdy to hold this exhaust system. It's not very long. It's a standard size pickup truck. And it didn't move. But they failed me because they said, well, originally this had 4, so it cannot pass unless there's 4. And I said, but it doesn't need 4. And they said, it has to have 4, or we won't pass it. So I said, drop it. I'll go down. For $3, I picked up one of the generic hangers, bolted it to the frame, put it on the exhaust. It's fairly close to one of the other ones because it's not doing anything, but it's 4th. They can count them and say 4, and they passed it. So those are the kind of ridiculous things you can run into. There's no convincing me that that's a safety issue. And the whole purpose of the vehicle inspections is supposed to be safety. When I introduced this bill, what it originally was going to do was take us from annual inspections to once every 2 years. It's not a big jump. And years ago, New Hampshire inspections used to be every 6 months. When they put the bill through to make it from every 6 months to once a year, everybody was screaming about how the sky was going to fall. It's going to be a demolition derby on the roads. They tried to kill it. They didn't want to go from 6 months. It passed. We've had yearly inspections since, and the sky didn't fall, and we haven't had a demolition derby on the road. With other states, New Jersey, they got rid of the inspection altogether. They decided that the National Transportation Safety Board's data shows that having a yearly inspection doesn't drastically improve your vehicle safety. People who have a problem with their vehicle, still going to go in and get it looked at, but you're not forcing someone to buy a product once a year, which is what you end up doing with the annual inspections. I found out the hard way that the biggest lobby in New Hampshire is pretty much the New Automobile Dealers Association, and one of the second big ones is the people who own the garages. And when both of them are against you, lobbying the committees that are hearing these bills, it's very hard to get a bill out of committee that they feel is going to take money out of their wallet. To a man, not one of them admitted they made any money on this. They said it's all for the safety. So I pulled up all the safety data figures, and I presented those in committee, and I said there's no safety correlation here. Look at the states that don't have inspections, and that's when they came back at me and said, but New Hampshire, you know, has the worst winter weather of any state in the nation. We have such bad winters, we have to have an annual inspection. And I didn't really buy it. I think Michigan's probably got some pretty nasty winters, and North Dakota's definitely got some nasty winters. But, you know, just to give them the benefit of the doubt, I said, can you tell me then that you think that we have worse winters than Quebec? Just, you know, we'll go outside the United States. Worse winters than Quebec, maybe? I don't think anybody could make that argument. And Quebec has what I consider to be the most common sense, logical way to address vehicle inspections, and it's a model that we should adopt here in New Hampshire. They only require inspections if a car has been off the road in storage for 12 months consecutively, if the car's been in a major accident, had to have repairs, and needs to have an inspection before it goes back on the road, or in the cases of school buses and public transportation, it's a every 6-month inspection. Common sense. You want your kids to stay safe on those buses and things, and then for large semis and vehicles that tow loads, because they're under all that stress of towing the heavy loads, they have an annual inspection for that. But aside from that, your personal vehicle, as long as you keep it on the road, continuous operation, and you take personal responsibility now for maintaining it because it's your transportation. You need it to get back and forth. You're not going to let it fall to pieces on you. And if it starts making noises, you're going to go in and get it fixed. It's all about personal responsibility, you know?
So when you were elected, you were first elected 2 years ago.
Yes.
This is actually your first term right now.
Yep.
Did you, and I noticed this like either in the Union Leader or the Nashua Telegraph, the story about House Bill 387.
My original
Did
vehicle
you make
inspection.
that as a campaign promise when you were running?
It wasn't really a campaign promise, but I had a very good supporter of mine who said, you know, if you get up there, I'd really love to see something addressed on this because these annual inspections are kind of ridiculous. And it really victimizes women and older people who go in for their annual inspection and they're told, you got to have all this repair work done. It's going to cost you $800, $1,000 to get your inspection, or we're not going to let you put your vehicle back on the road. And, you know, not to stereotype, but typically that's not the part of the population that's going to go out and fix their own vehicle or know really in depth how their vehicle runs and what is safe and what isn't, and they couldn't look at the part and tell you, yeah, it is working fine. It's a perfectly good part. They made it up. I'm not saying all garages are unscrupulous, but I don't think that we have enough safety nets in place to make sure that we weed out those unscrupulous businesses. It's up to the individual to say, I'm never going back to that place again. Or word of mouth for people saying, here's a good shop, go there, don't go to this other one. But I would love to see, and this may be part of my bill when I bring it back again next year, if I'm reelected, some manner of the state taking responsibility for making sure that their garages that they have licensed to do inspections are actually doing real inspections, i.e. X number of random shops have to be surveyed once a year with a decoy car that they drive in there and say,
Amen.
do an inspection.
Excellent.
With the garage not knowing who this person is or that it's a state inspection from the state, and see what comes back. If the Department of Transportation and the government got together on that type of a program, and the garage never knew if the vehicle coming in was going to be a decoy that they had to get everything right on, I think that you'd see people a lot more careful on trying to pull one over on somebody, and that garage would get dinged and possibly lose its license if it tried to pull fraud on somebody and the state caught them.
Or, like in my situation, I took my car, I said I didn't want to make a big stink out of it, to a second one, and the first thing he did after taking my money was going on the computer network.
Now that's a little unscrupulous in itself, because to take your money first and then look to see your car's there and then not return it because he didn't even do an inspection on you, that's, to me, there should have been recourse there for you to get your money back right away, because he never did an inspection. He just looked on the computer and saw that you got rejected somewhere. I'm not sure exactly how deep the recourse is when you've gotten a failure like that to have a second opinion, but it ought to be available. You ought to be able to go to another garage, have that garage look at the vehicle as well. If they're going to inspect it, by all means, charge you some more money, because they've actually done the inspection, but don't automatically disqualify you because you're in the computer as rejected over there. Let this guy, and especially if it's competition, let him look at it and say, you know what, that guy lied about this, or that guy's right. If he was right, then you've got some peace of mind as a consumer. Okay, I really do have a problem here and I need to fix it. But you should be able to go and get that extra inspection without him saying, no, not at all, because you're in the computer already. That doesn't fly with me, and that's a situation that also needs to change. Now, that first bill, changing it to every other year, there was a lot of lobbying done by the Automobile Dealers Association and the garages together as a group. They went into committees, they testified, they brought in boxes of parts that they said, see this brake rotor that's worn down to the point it's got holes in it and everything? This was off a car it's only 1 year old. And I looked at it and I said, there's no way that's only 1 year old unless the guy had a rotor problem and it was constantly stuck on his brakes all the time. There's no way. But they insisted, oh, definitely, this is 1 year old. And they lobbied so hard in the House, and there were also several House members, not a lot, but there was a good number of House members that are in some way associated with owning a garage, family members own a garage, auto dealers, some connection that really stood to benefit or had their family standing to benefit if they didn't lose that annual inspection income. And to a man, they all said, we don't make any money off the inspections. The inspections are, and I said, yeah, but you're getting people in there. They have to go in there once a year to see you, and then all these other things get sold to them at that time, whether they need it or not. Not at every shop, but on enough shops that there are enough people in the state that I think have needless work done, and the safety data does not back it up. They haven't had massive collisions and demolition derbies in New Jersey since this past with no inspections down there. There's a number of other states that don't have annual inspections. The model in Quebec, I think, is a perfect one. If I get in a huge accident and I've got to have a bunch of work done, by all means, do a safety inspection before I can go back on the road again. But if I'm a commuter and a family man and a hard worker and I take care of my vehicle and I know that vehicle has to get me to and from work every day, I'm not going to let it get to the point where it's going to break down on me on the highway. I got my own personal responsibility I'm taking. I don't need the state to tell me to come in and see them and get their little permission sticker.
So in January of 2015, when you brought this the House Bill 387 before the New Hampshire State House, was it killed? Did it lose by a lot, or did it lose by a squeaker?
I don't remember the exact number. I can probably look it up when we're on our break and get the exact number for you. I want to say it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 120 in favor to maybe 200 against. It wasn't a squeaker. It wasn't really a blowaway either, but it was a difficult sell to go from every year to every other year. Even though we had proof that going from 6 months to a year didn't cause us big problems, and we've seen other states that have gone to every other year that haven't had any problems, and we've seen other states that have just done away with it altogether that haven't had any other problems. In fact, New Jersey found that they were spending more money to maintain the program and issue the stickers than safety data was showing that they got a payoff from. And my original bill showed from the House Finance Office an impact to us of saving money in the state. We would actually save money from not having to print up stickers every single year with that year's sticker color and having to only do it every 2 years. We were actually going to save a bunch of money in the state by moving the program to every other year.
Now, you told me, too, through an email, that earlier this year in 2016, you proposed another variation to this bill?
Yep.
And it was a little more successful.
It was a little more successful. By House rules, I couldn't bring the same bill back. It's still in the same 2-year session. So once it was defeated, I had to think outside the box a little bit. And one of the things that I realized was that we could have a version of this bill that might encourage also people to buy new vehicles and actually promote some economy boost in the state by people purchasing new vehicles. So my second bill that I put in at the beginning of this year in 2016 proposed that for any vehicle that was brand new, bought from the dealership brand new, in the first 3 years of its life, it didn't need an inspection sticker. So people go in and buy a brand new vehicle, it's still under the manufacturer's warranty, it's a brand new vehicle. Cars are made with high quality these days, and if there's a recall notice because there is a problem, it gets brought in and taken care of for free. So, and a lot of the dealers have a maintenance program that people buy when they do it anyway. So this wasn't going to cause any kind of situation that was a bad situation. It would only apply to the brand new vehicles, which might encourage people every 2 or 3 years to buy a new vehicle. And they never have to have an inspection done. If they buy a new vehicle every 3 years, no inspection needed because they're rolling over to another brand new vehicle. And that one had a little more success in the House. But I think it's going to take another shot at it. And by all means, I think that there's a lot of bills that we put through the House that we have to put year after year after year until they finally get caught on that it makes sense, and let's do it, and let's save the state money and save the people hassle and the people money. Let's get the taxpayers to have a little bit of relief so that they're not getting overburdened as well.
Ah, to the best of your knowledge, did Governor Maggie Hassan say one way or another about House Bill 387 or the possibility of eliminated?
No, I never heard anything from her as far as an opinion, and that's probably because she knew that she wasn't going to get it out of the House. She had enough people of her Democrats and things working on that bill behind the scenes trying to kill it, that it wasn't going to pass. So she didn't have to take a stand. It was never going to get to her desk.
Oh, okay. That makes life simple for her, I suppose.
Yeah,
Ah,
she doesn't have to state an opinion if it's never going to get to her desk.
ah. So, now the state reps who are like car dealers on the side, or they own maintenance facility franchises like chains or something like that, they didn't have to disclose up front. They had a conflict of interest and stepped down.
You know what? That one puzzles me because I would have thought that, as an owner of a garage or something, that you would have to state that you've got a conflict of interest about this. But because they framed the whole argument about vehicle safety and not about the money aspect of how much it costs and the revenue that's brought in from inspection stickers, it was apparently decided that there was no financial benefit to these people keeping the program the way it is, and they did not have to declare a conflict of interest. So it's a little puzzling to me. I would have thought that it would have been, but no, it wasn't.
Ah. Okay, I was just told that we have about a half a minute left before the break. So I think I'll wait till after the break, our midway break here, to talk a little bit more about this interesting subject. And hopefully you'll join us. We come back from break for another, the second segment of Frankly Speaking.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Gatchell, and I am the director of Route 1 Ministry. And Route 1 is a nonprofit that works with women exploited here in the sex industry, and we do so by entering strip clubs. And the truth is about strip clubs and women who work there is that they are exploited. It's been reported that 90% of women who work in the sex industry have been sexually abused under the age of 18. It's also been reported that the age range of women in the sex industry is 14, as young as 14, and they go all the way up to age 62. I know a woman named Teresa who was trafficked when she was 15 years old by a fellow classmate from her high school in 1968. So the truth is that women in America have been exploited for more than 40 years, and the hope of Route 1 is to just come in and to hang out with women and to build a relationship. Trafficking is happening in the United States, and there's a lot that you can do about it. In fact, each of you can take this phone number down, 888-3737-888. That is the trafficking hotline number. And so if you see something, you can call them and report it. Thank you.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the second segment of our show here on Frankly Speaking about the hopefully eliminating New Hampshire vehicle inspection stickers. And to say my guest here, Representative James Spillane, is a little passionate about this subject, it would be an understatement. But, well, first of all, during our break, our producer looked up House Bill 387 from 2015,
Yep.
and it was defeated 207 to 140.
Which even closer than I had thought. I thought maybe we had 120. We had 140. So instead of 120 to 200, which is what I was thinking, it was 140 to 207. We were closer than I thought. But
And then earlier this year, House Bill 1649, which was a little variation, but not the same one.
that's the one that would have given them 3 free years of no inspection every time they buy a brand new vehicle. And so brand new vehicles that don't, you don't buy a brand new car and expect that you're going to need to have an inspection done in the first year or even a month after you buy it in some cases, depending on when you buy it in the year. My birthday's in
warranty.
November. If I decide to buy one at the end of the year because there's a sale going on, I've got to have the damn thing inspected right there 2 months after I buy it or something. Brand new? We make cars so well these days, and they've got warranties pretty much three 3-year, 36,000 miles or more. Some of them are even, 5-year warranties. There's that window of 3 years, I think, is a common sense window for a brand new vehicle that you're gonna be perfectly safe on the road if you don't have an inspection sticker.
Okay, so you felt that was a little bit better, House Bill 1649, but that failed with no roll call.
Yeah, we didn't roll call that one. That bill was closer on the House floor. It was closer in committee. In fact, originally, the chairman of the Transportation Committee had said he could go along with that and he liked the idea. And there were several other people on the Transportation Committee that I talked to that said, yeah, I like that idea. I can do the 3 years. Some of them ended up going along with me on the House floor, and some of them went back on their word and voted against it anyway. But I think that eventually, if we keep trying to put common sense legislation through to relieve the burden on the vehicle owners, in light of the safety data that we're seeing, National Transportation Safety Board is not a biased organization. And when you look at their data, there was more accidents caused by animals getting in the middle of the road, or
Deers.
or driver inattentiveness, which they didn't break down by cell phone use versus somebody eating a cheeseburger versus the woman I saw the other day on 93 who was doing her mascara in the mirror while she's driving with her knees. That kind of stuff causes a whole lot more accidents, according to the National Transportation Safety Board's actual data, than vehicle malfunctions due to poor parts or poor maintenance on the vehicle that you would catch in a vehicle inspection. There was nothing, and I'm talking in the neighborhood of 5% or less, would have been able to be stopped of all the accidents in the survey period by National Transportation Safety Board, which was spanned a number of years. 5% or less would have been able to be stopped by a vehicle inspection. Any other of these accidents that were caused, fatalities and everything included, there was no vehicle malfunction associated with the accident, according to the data that was gathered by the National Transportation Safety Board. And see, the data is just not there to back up the claim that it's an extremely safety-oriented position to take on annual inspections. It's just not there.
So you told me on the email, through email correspondence, that if reelected this year, you're still going to pursue this in 2017.
In some variation. In fact, I've had a number of reps come forward that want to add some things to it, want to be a co-sponsor on it, make sure that we've got even more of a well-rounded bill. One of the ideas from them was actually the decoy car enforcement.
I like that.
To make sure that we actually are holding the inspection stations to a high level as well, making sure they're doing a good job. If we're going to make you go and get an inspection sticker from somebody, then we ought to be making sure that they're honest.
There you go. Amen. I agree with that.
So that's something that may find its way into a variant on this bill. I may do the 3-year brand new vehicle version on it again. Everything's a step in the right direction. If we can get a little bit of a step in the right direction, then maybe later down the road, when we get the data in on how did this affect us, we'll see there really wasn't any jump in accidents because we didn't make people get an inspection. We can go a little further, just like we did when it was 6 months and we went to a year.
I hear you. Okay, going from an apples and oranges comparison here, please explain to me, especially the 200 some odd people who voted against you in 2015, how come they're not advocating that people on motorcycles wear helmets in New Hampshire?
Some of them are. I bet you every one of the Democrats would be up there saying, yep, I'll vote for a helmet law. There are also, some of them want to have us mandate seat belts, but not everybody. You know, of those 207 that voted against, you got to understand there's a good block of Democrats in there that were not going to vote in favor of me because they want to keep that the same way. And there's a bunch of Democrats that want to see us mandate helmets, and there's a bunch of Democrats that want to see us mandate seatbelt usage. But we are the live free or die state, and it's up to personal responsibility and personal choice whether you wear a seatbelt when you're an adult or wear a helmet when you're an adult. And I think by the same freedom aspect of that, you got to give people the ability to use their personal responsibility to decide to keep their car maintained well or go into the service when it needs to be serviced. And to be honest, even if we get rid of yearly inspections, there's nothing stopping somebody from going in once a year and saying, you know what, I feel safer having somebody look at my vehicle once a year. Would you please look at it? But it's their $30 to decide to spend. They're not being mandated to do it. So until they put something in our Constitution that says you have to do that, I don't think we should be making people do that. Why should we be paying the state for another fee, for another permit, and forcing someone to do business once a year with a particular establishment? I'm against forcing people to do any type of business. It's your money, and that goes straight into like Obamacare. We're going to force people to buy something. How can we do that as a nation or as a state? How can we force people to buy something?
I hear you. I hear you. So what exactly, would you happen to know if I have a maintenance shop or buy a franchise, one of these regional or national maintenance, auto maintenance franchises or something, or I had a dealership, how do I go about getting certified or getting a license to give people annual inspection stickers in New Hampshire?
That's beyond my area of expertise. I have never had to go through the process of being certified myself, so I don't know everything that's entailed. I do know that there's testing that they have to pass, but to the best of my knowledge, once they pass that testing, there's nobody going in there doing a surprise inspection to see if they're doing what they're supposed to do. So once they've got that,
there's no accountability.
I don't think there's
whatsoever.
accountability on the end of the garage to the state, and I think that's one of the holes that we have in that whole process. But as far as the process that somebody has to go through to become a certified garage to do inspections, I don't know exactly what that is. I know that they need to have certain equipment. They have to have the OBD2 computer. They have to have, like in the case if they do motorcycle inspections, they've got to be able to do the motorcycle volume testing and all that kind of stuff. So there's certain equipment they have to have. The people have to be, the mechanics actually have to be certified to a certain level to be able to do the inspection. But I don't know those figures, and I'd have to go look that up.
Okay, no problem, no problem. But to the best of your knowledge, nobody has ever lost their certification or license because of fraud or deceit or anything like that.
I couldn't say never, but I haven't seen it happen that I know about in at least these 2 years, nor have I read about it in the paper prior to that. One would imagine that would become a big deal if that was caught. But I haven't seen it happen, and I know that right now there's nothing as far as a program goes from the state to make sure that these guys are getting a decoy car put into them to see if they find the right things that are wrong with it, or put one in there that's got nothing wrong with it and see what comes back. So
another apples and oranges comparison. Why does the state of New Hampshire invest in liquor stores, state-owned liquor stores, to have like the same thing of Smirnoff vodka cost the same in Manchester or Nashua or Salem or Pelham or stuff like that, and not have like state-owned inspection stickers to give out and tell whether or not a car should fail?
I believe it was New Jersey that had, and I may be wrong on the state, but there was one of the states in my research that had state-owned facilities that would do the inspections. And I believe you were able to choose to go to a private one if you wanted to, but the state ones were cheaper. But it ended up costing the state a lot of money, and they weren't getting a return on that money in safety numbers, so they shut it down. As far as New Hampshire, I like the cheap alcohol. I don't know about you, but
Okay.
The fact that they can buy it in bulk, and there's a lot of my friends in the State House that would like to see that go away and not have the state controlling a monopoly on liquor in the state. Again, like a freedom issue, your local guy can't go start up a liquor store because he just can't compete with the state. The state can do it so much cheaper with the buying power they have.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that the right avenue to approach would be to have the state start up state facilities to do inspections, although that would ensure a consistent pricing and a consistent quality. What you might end up with, though, is long waiting lines for people to get their inspections, because then you'd have to be getting to a specific inspection facility during the hours it's open. There wouldn't be as many available as there are the hundreds of garages through the state. There's no way you could have one on every corner. So I think that the smarter thing to do, and the state would end up spending way too much money. I think the smarter thing to do is save the state money. And like I said before, if they go from every year to every other year on their printing of inspection stickers, they're already saving a ton of money just by doing that. The amount of staffing for doing all the bookkeeping and everything for annual inspections versus biannual or semi-annual inspections, so that they're doing it every 2 years, is basically twice the amount. So you're going to be saving quite a bit of money if you can go that direction. And
Okay.
I'd rather see the state saving money, especially when the data doesn't prove up that it's worth having these inspections every year.
Okay, moving right along, since we, and I mean, this will be a 1 week on the Nashua cable network, but it'll also be on my YouTube site. So hopefully, well, the people of Nashua too would probably like to know a little bit about yourself, on how you feel on common issues as the people in Deerfield.
Sure.
So, okay, so moving right along, has there ever been a threat to impose a state income tax in New Hampshire?
I think we see one pop up every few years. There's always proposals for the state income tax, and that's one of the reasons we try to make the governor pledge not to sign an income tax. And I know when I was running, I took a pledge to not only not put an income tax or a sales tax in place, but also the same pledge to not raise taxes. And personally, if we're going to take back our New Hampshire advantage, we need to be eliminating taxes. One of the first bills I put in my first year was also to reduce the business profits tax, because I felt that the business profits tax is too high. One of the major reasons that we have businesses choosing to go to other states instead of New Hampshire is our high electrical cost. We can't do a lot about that, but when you look at our combined business profits and business enterprise taxes, that's a large hit on people as well. And if we reduce those, then we're going to bring more businesses into New Hampshire, and hopefully we'll be driving our economy in the correct direction instead of bringing an exodus from New Hampshire and forcing the economy further down the drain.
And well, one thing New Hampshire is known for, well, I mean, not really known for, I don't know, nationally, is it does have pretty high property taxes, maybe to compensate that it has no state income tax.
I heard that argument a lot when I used to work in Cambridge.
Okay.
I would be in Cambridge having this discussion with my coworkers, because they'd go, "Wow, it must cost you so much money to live in New Hampshire
Yeah.
because of your property tax." I'm going to stay in Massachusetts because my property taxes are lower. And I had to tell them, I said, if you add it all up, I would prefer to be in New Hampshire and pay my property taxes in one hit like that than pay a nickel and dime tax on almost everything I do. Because the taxes down in Massachusetts, you're not only going to get hit with your income tax and your sales tax, but then you've got excise taxes, and you've got taxes on pretty much everything you do in Massachusetts. And you add all those up, I think it's far more than I pay in my property taxes. And I made that claim to them, and my taxes have gone up since. But I'm still pretty confident that the amount I pay is less. And the other good thing about having a property tax like that is that everybody in New Hampshire sees it, they know what they're paying, and they can get angry if they feel like their tax money is being spent the wrong way. It's much easier for people to forget those tiny taxes that come out when they go to buy something at the store and have to pay a sales tax, and not realize that's more tax money. That's money that they earned, their hard-earned money, that's going to the state, and what's the state doing with it? Right now in New Hampshire, we have a rooms and meals tax. You can choose not to go out to eat. You can choose not to stay in a hotel. So those aren't compulsory taxes. We have a property tax. That's pretty compulsory if you own property, and it does, in the form of rent, end up getting paid by people who rent as well, because the landlord has to pay his property tax, so that's going to basically make a line in the sand where he can't charge less for rent than he needs to pay for his property taxes and maintenance of the building and all that. So it does influence the rents as well. But you can see that money right up front. When I get a tax bill twice a year and I can see all the money I just sent to the government and I see what they're spending it on, I can get angry. And everybody in New Hampshire is pretty tax oriented, and I think it's because of the way that we handle it. It's not taken out of your paycheck and stuck to the side where you don't really see the money come out. You got to see that bill. And even if you have it taken care of through your mortgage company like I do, I still get a copy mailed to me, and I open that copy up and I look at it and my jaw hits the floor a little bit, and I go, but you know what? Over the course of the year, I paid for my services, I paid for the schools, and I didn't have to pay nickel and dime taxes when I went out to buy anything. One of the most ridiculous places I ever saw was my friend Dave, who used to live up in Troy, New York. And he and I were talking about sales taxes in particular, because he missed New Hampshire and not having to deal with a sales tax. You couldn't go to a store in New York, take something off the shelf and look at the price tag and walk up there with that money, because you never knew what the tax was going to be. In New York, they had a tax on cheese if it wasn't New York cheese. But if it was made in New York or from a New York dairy, there was no tax on it. Milk, if it was from New York, had no tax. But if it was from some other state and brought into New York, it had a tax on it. They had taxes on some foods that they considered to be snacks, and some foods that they didn't consider to be a snack didn't have a tax on it. And so it was like, even just going out to buy groceries, you never knew, people have a budget, and you got to think, what can I afford? And you go to the shelves and you're looking at the comparison prices and you're trying to do the best thing to get the best quality for the least price. And you get up there to the register and suddenly you're paying $10 or $15 more than what you had calculated in the aisle. People putting things back, because you just never know. There's so many of those little taxes that you don't see. And then at the end of the day, or even at the end of the month, could anybody answer, how much did you spend in taxes last month on your groceries? It's one of those taxes that's forgotten, which is why it's so easy for them to raise those taxes, to collect a whole bunch of those taxes. It's a situation that's a slippery slope, and if we ever did that in New Hampshire, those taxes would never go away. They'd just keep going up and up and up, because it's one of those transparent taxes. People don't see it. They don't realize what they're paying for. The government gets a whole lot of money. Then they go and they do a whole lot of spending.
Incredible. Is there a push in the New Hampshire state legislature on the tolls, like the amount of tolls that you pay every time you go through a toll booth, or that more tolls along the 93 and...
That's been an actual interesting argument, especially over the last 2 years, because there's a lot of people with all the hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles now that were trying to make the case in the State House that those people aren't paying their fair share of the road toll, which is our gas tax. So the tolls themselves that we have on the roads right now, they're not a big portion of what we use to maintain our road system and stuff. It's mostly the gas tax. And if you've got electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles, you're not spending as much money as the next guy to maintain the same roads that you're using. So there was somebody that proposed a bill this year to tax people at the time they register their vehicle based on how many miles they drove in the year before. And I had to really fight that. I don't think it ever went very far, but I said straight out, there's nothing to say that those miles were driven in New Hampshire. And there's nothing to tax the person who's not in New Hampshire using our roads. If you're up here from Connecticut and you register your car in Connecticut, you're not paying the tax when you register your vehicle for using New Hampshire roads. By the same token, if you're a New Hampshire resident who goes on a family trip and you decide to go out to the Grand Canyon and put thousands of miles on your car and come back, when you go to register your car next year, you're paying a huge amount of taxes and you never drove those miles in New Hampshire. So there's a lot of fairness questions coming in on it. I think one of the most fair ways that we have to tax everybody, if it isn't through the gas tax when people fill up here, would be through a toll booth, because you're paying for what you use. So I know that there are reps in the Seabrook area that want to see those tolls go away. I know there's some reps down in the Merrimack area that want to see those tolls go away. It tends to be a little regional area where they are against a toll if they have a toll. If they're not from that area, they don't really care too much about the toll. But as far as just plain fairness goes, if you're going to say that we need to pay for the use of the roads, then let's charge people by what they're actually using and not charge people a gas tax if they're filling up their tractor that's not driving on the road, not charge people a gas tax for any gas use that's not going towards being on the road. I had a bill in to reduce the gas tax too, and they didn't want to see me do that, so that one got killed as well. But I'd love to knock the gas tax back down as well. I think that the roads have to be maintained, but we're taking a good portion of our money that comes out of the gas tax right now and using it to fund the state police, because many years ago they decided that state police patrolling the roads was part of maintaining the roads. So it's a perfectly good use of the money that's supposed to be to maintain the roads to siphon it off and put it in the police department. And you could make the argument either way on that, but I don't think it's a fair practice. I think that 100% of any gas tax that's collected should go towards maintaining the roads and fixing the bridges, and let the state police and the other police get their money in their budget for what they're going to need, and then we'll see it. Just like with the property tax bill. You see it there right up in front, you know what you're paying for, and you can either disagree or agree with it.
Okay, the last couple of minutes here on our show here, one more question I'd like to squeeze in. Are there any incentives in the New Hampshire state legislature to bring more jobs and businesses to New Hampshire?
Well, we have been trying to work with reducing the business profits tax and business enterprise tax, because we don't like being one of the most expensive places to do business in the United States. One of our biggest problems, though, is the lack of cheap electricity. And there's a lot of legislators that have been thinking about this for years, trying to figure out how do we bring the cost of electricity in New Hampshire down so that businesses can afford to do business in New Hampshire. And I'm sure it's going to be a recurring theme. We're constantly looking to try to bring businesses in, but one of the things we can't do constitutionally is offer a tax incentive to one business over another business. And you'll see in some of the other states, they'll say, this company X was given a tax incentive for the first 5 years that they're going to be there. They won't have to pay any taxes if they relocate to this state. But because in our Constitution it says that we will tax everybody fairly and at the same rate, we can't take and pull out one particular group or one particular person and charge them a different tax rate than we charge everybody else. So when we come up with a solution for businesses in New Hampshire, it needs to be for every business in New Hampshire. Small businesses, big businesses, every business in New Hampshire. And right now the only way that we have direct control over what we tax them is through the business profits tax and business enterprise tax. Finding them cheaper energy is a much harder problem to solve.
Okay. Well, that takes us, we got like less than a half a minute left. James, it's been a joy to have you on here.
I've had fun.
Yeah, and I wish you the best. Like, if you know anybody in the in Deerfield, Nottingham, or Candia that's a voter, please tell them about to re-elect James Spillane as your state rep. And or if you want to financially contribute to your campaign,
There's
you can
donations
go
on my website, which is on the TV.
jamesspillane.org.
Yeah.
Definitely, and they can support you that way. And we'll definitely be monitoring the next House bill that's going to be pertaining to eliminating, hopefully, the elimination of the New Hampshire state tax, state inspection sticker.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll see how this one goes.
Definitely, definitely. And for Frank Zabierek, on behalf of myself, please join us next time for the next episode of Frankly Speaking. Thank you very much.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.